Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service.
Here we are again at the end of a rainbow.
Now, say what you want about Dave Chappelle, the recently canceled multi-millionaire comedian who signed a Netflix deal that netted him $20 million per special as punishment for offending big trans. This is sarcasm, BT dubs. But he perfectly sets the tone on the intro track of Why Lawd, the long-awaited new album from NxWorries, the duo comprised of rapper, singer, drummer Anderson .Paak and producer extraordinaire Knowledge. Chappelle's short and sweet spoken word piece on gratitude and submitting to God's unimpeachable wisdom immediately kicks off this second NxWorries album with a much different tenor than its predecessor. Because while Yes Lawd saw Paak revel in his newfound fame, living the fast life, womenizing to his heart's desire, this new album sees Paak revel in the consequences of his previously unapologetic player ways, displaying a level of emotional honesty that makes Why Lawd a cautionary tale in fucking up a good thing. That's why this album had a particular impact on me, because it served as a reminder that I have someone special currently in my life, and I sure as hell should not let that go. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth artist interviews, album reviews, and general rap commentary on the best that the underground rap scene has to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. Anderson .Paak and Knowledge's debut collaboration, Yes Lawd, was brilliant and a personal favorite album of mine from the 2010s. Atop the backbone of Knowledge's soulful, sample-heavy instrumentals, Paak's performance towed the line, as it often has, of a womanizing player who simultaneously is charming and arresting. No one did wholesome hedonism quite like Anderson .Paak did on Yes Lawd. But on Why Lawd, Paak returns to delve headfirst into the aftermath of his recent divorce, where we see Paak share the jambalaya of emotions that come with such an emotionally heavy event that ultimately seems to have stemmed from infidelity and various forms of mistreatment. Throughout this entire record, the degree of raw honesty that he shares is something I felt was very impactful and added a depth to Paak that was not previously seen on his last records. The transition from Yes Lawd to Why Lawd is stark, yet feels so seamless. The emotions that Anderson .Paak explores on this new album feel really genuine because they feel earned. It's the existence of both albums being connected that bolsters the impact of what we get here in Why Lawd, because we can contrast the exuberant, fun recklessness of the last album with the stark tones of regret and longing and genuine heartbreak that we get on this latest record. We have access to all of the context to why this heartbreak arrived at his doorstep, since we heard of the womanizing player shenanigans from before. This thematic consistency and cohesion is made even more apparent on songs like Out the Way, where Paak sings, "I know I said that I cannot choose one, but I'm starting to think you could be all I need," which is a direct reference to Side Piece, a song from the first album where he says that one won't do and two is not enough. It's this emotional differentiation between the two albums that makes Why Lawd feel very intentional, like it's truly a new, inspired, creative expression and not just a simple retread or a forced cash grab. So while the album's lyrical content delves into seemingly sad or depressing content, what amazes me about this album is that Paak and Knowledge simultaneously cultivated a sonic landscape that fits the smooth, romantic vibe that is, funnily enough, tailor-made for a day spent with your partner for whom you share a healthy, very loving relationship with. Case in point, this album soundtracked what my girl cited as her favorite day that she spent with me so far. This day was a perfectly blue skies, sunshine, temperature in the mid to high 20s type day in Toronto, where we lied down in the park with Why Lawd playing through my Bluetooth speakers. NxWorries managed to make an album about heartbreak and a love lost sound so intoxicatingly blissful. And how they achieved this is really twofold. Firstly, it was through the insanely picturesque, sultry sample choices all over this album. Knowledge has always laced his beats with soul, gospel, and doo-wop source material, but on Why Lawd, the level of instrumental focus on this particularly rich and romantic sound is really awe-inspiring. It features a lot of guitar licks and heavenly vocals that elevate the sound to a level I honestly don't think Knowledge has hit before. No matter how sad or bitter the subject matter is, the beats consistently make this album an immensely breezy, fun listen despite it all. Now, the second reason why NxWorries made an album that has this heavier subject matter feel so light and blissful and intoxicating is because these vocal lines from Anderson .Paak are fucking marvelous. Like, Walk On By is truly, that hook is truly one of the best melodic moments I've heard in so long. He just makes everything sound so buttery smooth. But what elevates this album even further is the subtle complexities, the layers to the emotions that Anderson .Paak displays. Like, we get beautiful vocals on an album like Ventura. I love that. But this is more. Anderson .Paak plainly does yearning better than almost anyone on the planet right now. And it reminds me of a moment on the Jenkins and Jones podcast where they said that yearning is what is needed more of in today's R&B scene right now. And I couldn't agree more. The kind of yearning that you'd routinely see in those late 90s R&B songs, you know, the ones that had the music videos where the guy would be singing shirtless, holding his heart in the mirror, or trailing his love interest, walking behind her, doing very odd body movements and dances and spins, you know what I mean? It's that unspeakably raw, guttural need for another person that is something that simply cannot be faked. And in Anderson .Paak's performance, you can feel this palpably. Despite the blissful overtones in the sound and melodies of this album, the undercurrent of hearing Paak's anger and sadness is something I can relate to and never want to experience with the current someone I have in my life. Daydreaming is an amazing example of this dynamic because within the panoramic, bright synths and the soaring vocals, the writing about this woman he's in love with in this song is all written in past tense. On this song, there's a clear underlying melancholy that brandishes even the most uplifting of vocal lines. No matter how beautiful it sounds, it feels kind of bittersweet at the same time. Even on a song like Fall Through, which features one of the most irresistibly charming hooks and reads like one of the most straightforward, true romantic type tracks on this album, it's once again painted with a tiny tinge of thinly veiled kind of passive aggressiveness, where Paak's inclusion of the "when I'm gone" at the end of the song's refrain reframes the little slice of lust and fun that he's describing on the song like it's fleeting and only going to be temporary. On the other side of the coin of this undercurrent of melancholy, there's a whole lot of overcurrents of plain old explicit showcases of anger and sadness. Like on Keeper, where while again it's delivered with a fun, playfulness to it, Paak is very clearly bemoaning the behavior of his former lady when their relationship came to a close with such a clear bitterness, which only gets one-upped later on in the album by Here I Am, where Paak just sounds terribly down bad. Stalking on his ex Instagram profile, lashing out at a friend who even brings up the breakup. It's really rough to hear. Now, with all that being said, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that while much of this album is packed with regret and melancholy, The tone of the album does shift at the end, where it gets to Walk On By in particular, the final full song and the album's true coda, where Anderson .Paak recognizes the hurt he put his ex through and shows a genuinely clear-headed perspective that doesn't feel shrouded in humor or obfuscated by false bravado. It's him genuinely showing that he acknowledges his mistakes and attempts to show compassion to himself and others like him who had to deal with difficult and traumatic upbringings and environments and just had to survive in life, and as a result may have not had the privilege to focus on personal growth and maturing because he had some bigger fish to fry just trying to make ends meet. And so Why Lawd ends up feeling a lot more uplifting at the end, suggesting that, as Chappelle says at the beginning of the record, this saga of mistreating and taking for granted this past woman, this person he previously was engaged with, may have enabled Paak to be exactly where God intended him to be. So he can presumably bring this newfound wisdom and learning with him in the future. And while that speaks to the impressive nuance and detail that Paak and Knowledge captured on Why Lawd, and shows that spiritual salvation may be in store for Paak and anyone else who did wrong in their life in the past, it also doesn't have a fairy tale ending of Paak winning back his fiancée. Because truthfully, when you break something, sometimes it just stays broken. Even if you can mentally recover, learn from it, and find joy elsewhere, that special someone may still be gone forever. Which now brings me back to the central thesis and impetus of this entire episode. Why Lawd came to me at the perfect time in my life. A time where I'm in the best, most healthy, and rewarding relationship I've ever been in, with a remarkably beautiful and smart woman who is sweeter than insert sweet substance. So the thought of it ever coming to an end feels absolutely mortifying. It's for all these reasons that Why Lawd is profoundly impactful, because to me, it's an ode to appreciating the special person I have in my life that is masquerading as one of the most beautifully crafted, most gorgeous sounding albums I've heard in a long time. Now, lastly, I want to address this one point, which is that whenever I or anybody else injects some real personal stuff into a piece of creative work that's public, like the one you're hearing right now, it's natural to ponder, what if we do break up in the future? Will this episode being out there in the wild feel embarrassing or uncomfortable later on if our relationship was no more? And what I'd say to that is this. Firstly, I don't think that's going to happen. But set that aside and let's just be even more pragmatic if you want. If I ever were to garner such a large fan base that weirdos on the internet bring this episode up as a way to clown on me for being like, yo, dude, you're such a loser, you made this and then you guys broke up, like, that means this pod is really up. So, that's not the worst thing, okay? That's not the worst consolation prize. But more importantly, if I were to follow in the footsteps of Anderson .Paak and ruin my current relationship, causing it to end, unlike Paak, I don't have a heavenly voice, rap skills, or a producer-like knowledge to help me process and monetize the resulting pain of ruining a great thing. So ultimately, my takeaway from this hypothetical is really simple. Speaking about any of this publicly or not is irrelevant, because the only lesson I took away from Why Lawd that matters at all is that, simply put, I have someone special in my life right now, and I better not fuck it up. So there we have it, another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some new perspectives and insights into what the greatest art form known to man in hip-hop music has to offer. If you want to support the show in the most meaningful way possible, it would be my absolute honor to have you as a patron in the new Rap Music Plug Podcast Patreon. Through this Patreon, you will be getting exclusive content such as bonus episodes, exclusive album recommendations, exclusive playlists, early access to episodes, and more. And above all, though, you will be able to support the show directly in a way that will not only justify the crazy amount of time I spend on this show already, but allow me to cover some of the expenses related to supporting all of these great artists that we cover on the show through the website, and will allow us to sustain and build on this amazing growth that the RMPP has experienced recently. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.